All right, welcome everyone to the Tuesday, November 19th, 2024 Tumwater City Council meeting. We will start off with roll call.
Councilmember Leota Dahlhoff,
She is excused this evening.
Councilmember Angela Jefferson,
I am present.
Councilmember Joan Cathy,
Present.
Councilmember Eileen Swarthout,
Present.
Councilmember Michael Althauser,
Present.
Councilmember Peter Agabi,
Here.
Councilmember Kelly Von Holtz,
Present.
Mayor Debbie Sullivan.
And I am present. Join me in our salute to our flag. All right. First item we have is proclamation for GIS Day, which is November 20th, tomorrow, and Councilmember Swarthout is going to be reading this proclamation.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Whereas the City of Tumwater recognizes that an understanding, use, and application of geospatial technology is crucial to operating our infrastructure, sustaining our natural resources, and stimulating economic growth, thus benefiting the welfare of general public throughout the South Puget Sound region. And whereas Geographic Information Systems, GIS, technology allows us to see and model complex relationships and patterns to more intelligently respond. And whereas there is a need to promote GIS awareness, education, and technical training to use this rapidly developing technology to its full potential. And whereas the City of Tumwater acknowledges those that have chosen GIS as their profession or as part of their discipline to improve the lives of our residents. And whereas to recognize and support the efforts of partners who work on activities to improve environmental sustainability, human services, and various humanitarian efforts to better our world. And whereas having a day of GIS activities open to staff, government leaders, and the community will help promote spatial thinking and a better understanding of the use of these decision-making tools. And whereas the City of Tumwater is committed to utilizing GIS to inform decision-making and better service residents and make useful geographic information open and easily available to the community as a platform for innovation. Now, therefore, Debbie Sullivan, Mayor of the City of Tumwater, does hereby proclaim November 20th, 2024 GIS Day and calls upon the people of the City of Tumwater to learn about the GIS applications and data available on our website and encourage geospatial education in our community.
Great, thank you. We have a couple members of our GIS staff. If you come to the podium, and I will also present you with a proclamation. Here is the proclamation, and we really appreciate all the work that you do. You guys do such great work. And also with that, I'll let the picture, there you go. And with that, I'm also presenting you with a pin. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Sullivan and Council. I just would like to say a few words. We really appreciate GIS being recognized. We love our jobs. We think GIS is really fun. And this year we are having a public event that's open to anyone in the community. We teamed up with our Parks Department. So the weather's not really cooperating, but there's still time to participate if anyone would like to. You can go to any of 10 of our parks. There are signs up. You can scan a QR code, answer a couple of questions, and be entered to win a drawing. And along the way, learn some more about our parks and about GIS and different applications that we have on the website available to anyone. So we thank you again, and that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Really appreciate all your work. It's really important work. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is public comment, and I'm having Did the administrator grab the sign-in sheet? All right. So this is for public comment, and this is, I just want to remind everyone that public comment is for 3 minutes, and they will have a timer clock. And so when you come to the podium, state your name and your address for the record. So the first person signed up is Dave Nicandri.
Thank you, Mayor. Dave Nicandri, 505 4th Avenue Southwest. It's auspicious to be here on GIS night as someone who's written about pioneering geographers like Captain Cook and Lewis and Clark, George Vancouver and Alexander Mackenzie. That is indeed very important work. It's how we know where we are in the world. At least it's one way of knowing where we are. Secondly, I want to congratulate anyone here, the voters of the state, statewide, who might have had the good sense to vote in favor of Initiative 2066. I've come here many times over the last year and a half, pleading for some common sense and sensibility about this mad rush to electrify everything in our infrastructure system. It's particularly auspicious, again, on this occasion, as the lights flicker because of the wind outside. It's nice to know we have a backup energy system to keep the city's communication systems and all of our well-being here in good shape should the electrical grid go down, as many of the weather forecasters are predicting will be the case tonight. Although I would aver on the side that I think the city would be better advised to install a natural gas hookup to keep the emergency generator running in such cases as when it's needed, rather than bunker fuel or diesel oil, which I understand is the current situation. So you can you can help clean up the global environment by getting rid of the fuel tank and hook up to natural gas for emergency generation backup. Thirdly, I want to thank you, Mayor. I don't think it's a coincidence, but it is. We'll run with it. But since I was last year, I've been apprised that there will be a previously unscheduled meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission to have a work session on an activity agenda for calendar year 2025. I know I can speak with confidence. Me and all of my peers are thrilled that, again, I don't think it's coincidence, but if you had a hand in it, I thank you for giving us a lease on life, giving us a chance to do something productive for the city. So thank you for that. Finally, given the wind, we have another storm tonight. I stopped out by the oak tree before I came here tonight. Everything is still in good shape. Although I sent Councilmember Althauser and Councilmember Dolhoff, who unfortunately is not here, a text message just before I came up to the podium, because about 10 days ago, I was at the Tumwater Public Library and there was a 20-foot long, 6 to 8 inch thick thick piece of the fir tree that had fallen in very approximate juxtaposition to the sidewalk leading to the public library. That is a true widow maker, which to me just speaks to the capriciousness of the idea that the oak tree ought to be cut down when there's a tree literally right across the street. It could very easily have killed someone because of the limb that fell right in close proximity to the sidewalk. Thank you for your talk. Thank you for the time and all your good work on behalf of the city.
Thank you.
And happy Thanksgiving.
Eric Johansson. Name and address for the record.
Hi, Eric Johansson, Tumwater Hill. I sent a two-page written comments to the city council, so I'm not going to repeat them, just wanted to let you know. But as the previous speaker mentioned, my understanding is there's going to be a meeting later this week of the Historic Preservation Commission, and if any of the ideas in my comments are worth further discussion, you might want to consider that. Your call, of course. The primary focus of my comments is on the Cowlitz Trail, but to a lesser degree also the Davis Meeker Oak and tribal land acknowledgement. Thank you. Oh, by the way, the GIS folks you were honoring earlier, was one of them Jen Radcliffe by any chance?
Yeah. Yeah.
You ought to raise her pay. I called the other day, asked her a technical question about a layer I was interested in on the city of Tumwater map, and she said, yeah, I think we could do that. 2 hours later, it was done. She is impressive, really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you. It's always good to hear that. Anyone else wishing to make public comment this evening? All right, with that, did we have anyone online?
No, we don't have anybody online.
So now we're going to move to the consent calendar. So do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar? Councilmember Althauser.
I move we approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved to approve the consent calendar. I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. All right, the motion carries. And there is a bunch on this. The closer we get to the end of the year, the longer the consent calendar gets because we have all those work things that are being complete. So with this, we have the approval of the minutes of the city council meeting from November 4th, payment vouchers, ordinance number O-2024-006 ad valorem for regular property tax for the fiscal year 2025. Ordinance number O-2024-010, amending Tumwater Municipal Code 2.06 and Tumwater Municipal Code 2.10, relating to administration and personnel, creating a new department to be entitled the Information Technology Department. Interlocal agreement with the cities of Lacey, Olympia, Yelm for accessory dwelling units plan. Interagency agreement with the Washington State Department of Commerce for Tumwater Fire Station solar and storage feasibility. Grant from the Department of Ecology for Golf Course Stormwater Retrofit Project Amendment 2. Interlocal agreement with the City of Olympia for Mark Noble Regional Training Center. Interlocal agreement with the City of Olympia for FD Cares Program. Acceptance of the work with South Pacific Construction for the 2022 pedestrian improvement project. Acceptance of work with Miles Resource LLC for the 2023 pavement maintenance project. Old Highway 99 and 79th Avenue roundabout schedule, 74th underground conversion design agreement with Puget Sound Energy. Bargaining agreement between the City of Tumwater and the International Association of Firefighters, number 2409, encompassing January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2027. And advisory appointments for Alex Koshin for the tree board. And is Alex here this evening? I don't believe he is. No, I think he said he wasn't able to make it. So now we will move on to public hearing for ordinance number O-2024-007, which is the 2025-2026 biennium budget. Now we have had several work sessions, and this is the second public hearing that we're having. And one of the things that I just want to make mention is all of the cities and communities are having difficulty with ending fund balance, and we all need to use part of our reserve funding to make those balances happen. So I think we're very good that we were able to get it as low as we could. And I don't feel we're an anomaly to all of the other municipalities that are having the same struggles that we are. So with that, I will turn it over to City Administrator Parks.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll pull up the presentation here. So as the mayor mentioned, this is the second public hearing on the 2025-2026 biannual budget. The first one was held on November 4th. In terms of the presentation tonight, I wanted to first talk a little bit about providing some context and framework for the budget. This will look very familiar to council members from last week's work session, but I wanted to do this to talk just generally about with the public about what it is that guides the development of the budget. So first and foremost, the City of Tumwater has an officially adopted vision statement as well as a mission statement. One of the things that drew me to this position was actually both of these items. They talk about efficient and effective provision of public services and infrastructure, but it really talks about why we do that. It really makes a connection to our community members as the primary focus of what it is that we're doing here at the City of Tumwater. We also have a series of beliefs. This also was very much a compelling item for me. It's something that we point out, the mayor and I point out to every new employee that we meet with. And the Tumwater beliefs that have been established and adopted by the City Council appropriately address a wide variety of items, but in particular, we value people, both our existing and current staff, our council members, our community members. We are constantly seeking to and striving for excellence, looking for every opportunity, particularly for partnerships. And we are in a constant state of learning and evaluating how we can do things better. And we do have a very strong affinity for the environment within which we live and work and play here in Tumwater. City of Tumwater also has adopted financial policies. So as we are working through budget development, as well as all of our financial planning, our financial reporting, we do have policies that guide what it is that we do. These are available on the website, I believe. If not, I'm happy to provide them to anybody who would like to take a look at those. It's important that we have clear financial policies for transparency purposes, but also when and if the city is ever looking to finance a large capital project, bonding agencies are looking for strong financial policies that demonstrate fiscal responsibility on the part of the community. We also, getting more and more granular here, the council sets and establishes a set of strategic priorities and goals. Every year early in the year, there are retreat sessions and discussions with the council. So in 2024 was no different. In January, February, and March of this year, we had 3 separate sessions. In particular, the February session focused on updating the strategic priorities and goals for our community and identifying and providing guidance to department directors as we went through the process of proposing our various budgets in an effort to accomplish these strategic goals and priorities, along with our day-to-day work that we're required to do just by a matter of course. In terms of our current challenges, we talked about this in depth with the City Council at the work session on September 24th. The City of Tumwater is growing. We are a growing community, therefore we are a growing organization. Tumwater's growth is happening very rapidly. After Yelm, the City of Tumwater is the second fastest growing community in the city of, or excuse me, in Thurston County. So it isn't necessarily always just the number of people or buildings or growth permits or different measures of growth. It's also the rate at which that growth is happening that can be a challenge. And in general terms, the City of Tumwater's growth has outpaced our capacity to continue to serve that, the growth areas with the expected services and facilities. And our revenue growth has not been able to keep pace with that growth either. So we are, as the mayor mentioned, we are in a very similar situation to a lot of different communities, particularly here in the Thurston County region. So how did we get here? So again, the council retreat happened in January, February, and March of this year. They established our goals and priorities. From there, our financial staff looked at financial forecasts and projections. Our management team worked on workforce planning, identifying what it is that they needed in order to accomplish all of the things that they are being asked to provide to our community, both the day-to-day work as well as those strategic priorities I mentioned. Budget requests are specifically tied to all of that work. and began in earnest in July, June and July. We did have 4 municipal finance 201 work sessions with the council in preparation for our biennial budget, just talking in more general terms about what municipal finance really looks like and what it takes. We came up with an initial budget proposal. We needed to do a lot of additional planning and reduction. This is our first year doing a budget using our new ERP system. So we had some logistical and technical issues in addition to the challenges. We issued the mayor's proposed budget. I believe it was October 15th, perhaps, was first issued the mayor's proposed budget. It was relied way too heavily on ending fund balance in order to balance the work. We've had 3 different budget workshops with the city council to date. And in amongst all of those workshops, as well as the public hearings, both tonight as well as a month ago, 2 weeks ago, we have been making changes, and I believe we are in a place that we are comfortable with the level of use of ending fund balance at this point in time. So recognizing our challenges, we've developed essentially a 3-stage, a multi-year strategy that includes balancing and stabilizing where we are currently, trying to match the expectations of work and delivery of service to our current capacity, both our revenue as well as our staffing capacities. Hiring in early 2025 a municipal financial advisor to help us understand where we might have opportunities for long-term planning for a 10-year financial plan, working with the city council as well as through the community to identify and understand what people's specific priorities are for this for the community, so that we can begin to develop a strategy or multiple strategies, as well as different financial planning tools that help us prepare more carefully and more accurately for future budget processes, which then we would hope to deploy and implement first in the 27-28 biennial budget, which will begin preparation halfway through 2026. And then hopefully by the time we reach the 2029-2030 biennial budget, that sounds like really a long ways away, and it is not. We would be in a position to be able to have a good, stable and defined framework and process by which we can continue to do good fiscal planning and long-term financial work. So in terms of our budget priorities this year, we have talked about this on many occasions. In addition to all of the strategic goals and priorities, several of the things that we have identified as priorities include the following on the slide here. So we have identified that our non-represented folks, those are our people who are not represented by one of our 3 unions, have not kept pace in terms of their cost of living increases over time. So we felt it was important to make that market adjustment. We're having a hard time filling vacant positions. People are leaving for other better paying jobs, and we are concerned about an ability to continue to retain our qualified workforce if we don't do that market adjustment. We are concerned about adding staff. So the initial proposals that came in from each of the directors in July included requests for additional staffing in order to help them comply with and implement the council's various priorities and goals, as well as the day-to-day work. We've identified space and security needs at City Hall. We are essentially busting at the seams here. And in needing to add staff, that will only begin to get more difficult. We've also identified, as is very typical and usual in an instance where you're trying to make the best out of diminishing revenues, we have identified some deferred building maintenance throughout the city facilities. So in terms of our top priority with regard to our non-represented market increases, this graph shows from 1995 on the far left bottom axis, beginning in 2000 with the data points with 2025 being over on the far right. Our firefighters, our police, and our Teamsters have done a pretty good job in terms of their market increases.
The non-represented staff have not, and have fallen more and more behind in terms of our salaries. And we feel like this is a really problematic situation for us, and we're in need of moving forward with the market rate increase. It's difficult to hire people. It's difficult to retain people. We want to ensure there's parity across the city employees and the city departments. And with growth that's created the strain on workload, we feel like the challenges in hiring and retaining at least what constitutes about a half of our workforce is exacerbating currently that situation. So as I mentioned to the City Council a week ago or so, we identified cities that are comparable in size. We also identified the City of Olympia and the City of Lacey because that is the market that we compete with. These are the same comparable cities that we've used in all 3 of our bargaining unit processes over the course of the last 12 to 18 months. Our goal, which is the same goal that we had with our bargaining units, is to try and get our non-represented folks up into the top third of our similarly sized cities, which puts us more competitively close, at least close to our backyard comparables, being the City of Olympia and the City of Lacey. So in essence, the number of employees and positions that are covered by this market rate increase are approximately 125. The average below market that those 125 positions are is about 15%. The average increase that we're proposing in this current budget is 14%, and that increases range anywhere from 3%, which are people who have been, excuse me, hired typically more
Lisa, I
recent.
have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm looking at the population for Olympia and Lacey compared to us. And would you say that the challenge is we are competing for employees and our income isn't as high as those 2 cities? Would you say that? But we are
Yes.
where we are, right?
Yes, yes. And that's why it's important that we are continuing to show our backyard comps, because we have similarly sized communities, but we're
Mhm.
competing in the same marketplace as our backyard cities. And so
Right.
that it's important for us to understand that.
Right. So that's a great challenge for us. So
Yes,
all right. It just came to me as I was looking at the chart, but thank you.
yes, you're welcome. So in essence, the budget summary, so previously at the meeting, I believe at the public hearing on November 4th, we identified our total revenues as being $95,703,000 and change. We identified our existing beginning fund balance. This is the money that's been left over from previous years, as well as our reserve accounts. So we've identified total resources of approximately, in the past, a couple weeks ago, to be about $119 million. Our general fund expenditures are about $106 million. We would have a projected ending fund balance after that of 13 million. We have some requirements in terms of our reserves. Those financial policies that I mentioned establish what it is that we are obligated to identify in terms of reserves. And at that point in time, we were projecting that in order to pay for all of the things that we had identified in that budget, that we would have to use 10.2 million of our reserves in order to support this biennial budget. So for 2 years, we would have to dip into that by a total of $10 million. That is not acceptable. It's not fiscally responsible. So we've been working very hard as staff and directors to identify savings, identify potential new revenue, and we have done that to date. And so we believe we have a budget at this point in time, as was reviewed with the City Council at the last workshop. We believe we have a budget that is acceptable and fiscally responsible. It does utilize up to $5 million of those reserve accounts over the 2 years. That's not inconsistent with the use of reserves that both our neighboring communities are faced with they do annual budgets, so they are looking only annually. But I believe the city of Olympia is in excess of $3 million that they're using for ending fund balance. And I believe the city of Lacey is somewhere between $1 and $2 million. Yes.
Hold on a second. Yes, Councilmember Gabi.
So I don't know if I asked this question before. So if we are taking half of our reserve in the next 2 years, at what point in time would we say we wouldn't take any more reserve? Or do we have a limit on how much we can use of our reserve within a certain period in time?
So I'm going to answer this, and then Troy's going to hop up out of his chair if I say something incorrect or if I'm missing something. Generally speaking, we have identified reserve accounts that we're obligated by our own resolutions and ordinances to ensure that we are maintaining those. Those are maintained under this current budget. Even with that, there is this projected ending fund balance of $18,500,000 and change. And so of that 18,500,000 and change, we anticipate using 5 million of that over the next 2 years. That is okay currently for those 2 years. But as we discussed at the work session, it's going to be very important over the next 2 years that the city take a hard look at what are our revenue sources, what is our community expectation in terms of our service delivery, and how are we going to pay for those different service delivery expectations. And we will have to have a conversation about what it is that we can and cannot do moving forward and how we're going to pay for all of those things.
So if I hear you correctly, you're saying that within the next 2 years, our date certain at which we will have a discussion about how much, if we need to go back to the reserve, we need to fill it up.
We will be having that discussion in 2025, beginning in 2025.
Okay.
It is not sustainable to continue to use ending fund balance to balance your budget. It's necessary at this point in time in order to give us some time to do some very hard work in terms of additional revenue and programming, and how we can accomplish those things. That's what the financial planner, we hope, will be able to help us identify different strategies that other jurisdictions in the state of Washington have used, and have a conversation with our community about how important the services are, how they could be paid for, whether or not they're willing to pay for those things or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Althauser.
Thanks, Mayor. And so speaking of other jurisdictions, some other jurisdictions have taken an action to create a formal rainy day fund, which is sort of a sub-account that has a fixed amount of funding in it that is dedicated from excess revenues in good years to help mitigate situations like this one. We don't have a rainy day fund, correct? The way we approach it is we have an ending fund balance, and we can use that in situations like this where we come upon a difficult budget situation. That's our approach, right?
We actually have both. Several of our reserve accounts are specifically set up and could be potentially classified as a rainy day fund. And we use, I don't know if we have anything specifically called rainy day fund.
Yeah.
But several of our reserve accounts that we're obligated to set and meet include funds to help us weather the storm, so to speak. The ending fund balance is like the extra savings account.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, some of the fact that we've accrued some of the balance that we do have in those accounts is in line with the intention when we established them in the first place.
I
Correct.
believe that to be true, yes.
Thank you.
So I just might interject here. This is the reason why I really wanted to look at a 3 biennium strategy, so that we're not looking in silos of each biennium, but actually have a plan, have a strategic plan, how in the long term we deal with this. And so that is, if you saw in the very first plan, the 3 bienniums of how we can at least identify and not just go start from ground zero every single biennium. So that was kind of the direction I gave staff. And so that's where, so we don't have to continue to do this at this point. So sorry, go ahead and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. So one of the things that I did want to point out, and this topic is actually coming up on the agenda here in a moment. This current budget projects total revenue of about 96 million. That's what you see on the top right in red. That includes approximately 1.2 million that is associated with an increase in our revenue that is would be affected if the city council chooses to adopt. What we are proposing is an increase of 6% to the utility tax. So I have gone way past. There it is. So one of the items, this is an item further on the agenda. There's an ordinance that Troy will be doing a presentation on, asking the council to increase the utility tax that is applicable only to city-owned utilities, not to all utilities. The current utility tax is 6%. We're proposing an additional 6% increase. In essence, that is about $8.08 added to a person's bill. That gets us about $617,000 each year. So that's the $1.2 million worth of revenue. If that ordinance is not acceptable to the city council, which is your decision, we will need to make further cuts to the current budget before we come back to you next week asking for your approval of the budget. So there's more to come on the issue of the utility tax later tonight, but I wanted to point that out. I was a little bit uncertain about that last week, but I confirmed that the $96 million worth of projected revenue includes this $1.2 million of additional utility tax.
I see Councilmember Jefferson has her hand up. Did you have a question on this?
Yes, Mayor, I do. So, of the top two that you can point to as to why this deficit, what would it be? Just the top two.
Top two.
Mm-hmm.
First would be increasing expenses just related to inflation. Inflation in, I believe it was in 2023 was close to 4%. And to date, the average monthly inflation rate for 2024 is in excess of 3%, 3.2%, I believe. So that would be one primary factor. So just the cost of doing business has increased substantially for us. Even though the rate of inflation is going down, the cost of goods remains high, and it continues to increase, albeit at a slower rate. The second top issue, I would say, is the inability for our property tax levy to be increased above 1% total, which limits our revenue growth. So the tax levy that you approved for 2025 for the city of Tumwater during the consent agenda, the total revenue that we expect to have related to an increase in property tax is just under $300,000. So our primary, most stable source of revenue is shrinking, and it's shrinking exponentially. And so I would say that would be my answer. Councilmember Jefferson.
Okay, thank you very much, City Administrator.
You're welcome. So general fund budget summary, this is again where the primary expenditures over revenue occur. This slide shows the progression of our work. Whoops. I didn't do that. Okay, thank you. So we were on the 22nd of October, $10 million, using $10 million of our ending fund balance. At the November 4th public hearing, we were at 8.6 million, and we have brought that down to 5 million, which we believe is acceptable for this biennial budget.
All right, hold on one moment, Councilmember Gabi. Go ahead, Councilmember Gabi.
So if you don't know, you just say you don't know. The city of Tumwater, what is the current population? And part B of that is, of the total housing unit within our city, do you know which of those are newer within the past 2 years? Because I'm trying to establish how that 1% cap has not been able to keep up with our expenditure.
So the population of Tumwater is just over 27,000. And I'm sure that somebody will raise their hand if I'm not quite right.
That is fine. We don't need an exact
Um,
figure.
And I don't honestly know the answer to the question about how many units have been grown over time. Is Mike here? Do we have a approximate increase in housing units over the past? Yeah.
Okay.
We can get it, but so the reason we actually are getting close to $300,000 in new property tax is because of new construction. The actual 1% that we're allowed to collect above and beyond the current levy is about $116,000, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So about $183,000 is new construction. That's not just new construction on homes. That's all new construction that has happened in the city of Tumwater. That's actually quite a bit less than it was, for example, for 2024.
Okay.
Projected, I believe, new construction values added to our budget about $400,000. So we're actually down in our projected new construction increase in property tax.
Okay, so those kind of data would be more important as you talk about the budget, so that the public actually understand where this is coming from.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Property tax in the state of Washington is very complicated, but we will strive and endeavor to ensure that we are providing as much education as we can to the public in terms of understanding what this property tax cap actually means. So this pie chart shows the general fund revenue by category. And so you could see the primary, the light blue top right is the property tax levy, which is, I believe, at 22%. Thank you. I can't quite see it. The sales tax, which is on the gray on the right-hand side of the slide, is at 27%. And as noted before, this is the first time that our sales tax revenue has actually become the largest portion of our revenue projections for the city of Tumwater. That's good news, and it's not great news. The good news is that sales tax revenue continues to grow, which is reflective of the growth in our community. The challenge with having a lot of money, a lot of revenue dependent on sales tax, is that any type of economic downturn for whether it's national issues or state issues or local economy issues will have a significant impact on our revenue that is generated from sales tax. So there's a whole variety of other additional sources of revenue, intergovernmental contracts, B&O tax, and we can delve into this if there are some further questions. In terms of our general fund expenditures by category, as you would expect, we are a public employee heavy organization. We provide public service. It takes a lot of people to do that. So salaries are in the gray-blue color and benefits are in the orange color on the right and lower part of this pie chart. They constitute just under 67% of the total expenditures in the general fund. And it is a similar number when you look at the other utility funds or proprietary funds as well that have staff. In terms of the general fund expenditures by department, our police services and fire services are by far the largest contributors to our expenditures. We are fortunate to be able to spend quite a bit of money also on parks. And you can see then the various general fund expenses associated with the other departments. And just to kind of clarify, you see transportation and engineering is only 10%. This is just the amount of the transportation and engineering function that comes out of the general fund itself. So this is not consistent with, or this is not reflective of what the different values are for the transportation CFP or the capital facilities CFP. So just a point of clarification there. So some of the other funds, just generally speaking, so we have 4 business funds or enterprise funds. Our water, sewer, storm, and our golf course are all considered to be enterprise funds. They are supposed to be self-supporting. They are supposed to be funded by the ratepayers and the users of the system. So these show you the expenditures that are identified. These obviously include the capital expenses associated with these various funds. The utility rate and the rate and fee ordinance that, or resolution that the council adopted on, I believe it was November 4th, is inclusive of enough revenue to fund each of these respectively, with the exception of golf. Golf is not a self-supporting fund at this point in time. One of the strategies that we're utilizing now is to ensure that we're identifying all of the costs that are associated with the golf course in the golf fund so that we can be sure that we are being transparent in how much it is that we are supporting the golf course operation, the golf course fund out of our general fund revenue. I did want to throw this slide in here. This is a slide that if you looked through the PowerPoint presentation from last week's council work session, I had the numbers on the top 4 lines were incorrect. They were basically a repeat of the water fund. So I wanted to throw this in here. The highlights and the revisions are all the same, but I wanted to make sure that I was providing you with accurate information in terms of the sewer fund and its specific dollar figures. Capital projects. So our general government CFP anticipates spending approximately $36 million on a variety of parks projects, brewery redevelopment, potentially a wide variety of equipment that we need to purchase. And then our transportation CFP, we're expecting to spend just under $35 million in projects. As a reminder, so our capital facilities plans are updated on the years opposite of our biennial budget. So we'll be looking at our capital facilities plans in late 2025. They include projects that are planned and necessary based on input from our community and requirements of whatever our regulatory environment may be. We aren't necessarily going to get all of them completed in the next biennium, but we want to make sure that we've got a solid list of projects that, for example, as a grant fund comes available, a new program becomes available, we are ready in line and ready to go with a project that could potentially take advantage of those different grant programs or funding sources. So in general, the summary for the 2025-2026 biennial budget, the numbers that you see in orange on the far right, those are the total dollar amounts, including both the expenditures as well as the ending fund balance of all of those funds that are shown. I will say that when you add up the numbers in orange, it does not come to the 428 million at the bottom. That's because we actually have about 30 total funds. And so we aren't showing all of those. We're showing you the largest ones. The total number, the $428,940,178 is inclusive of all the variety of funds that we have here at the City of Tumwater. Our next steps are to conduct this public hearing. You've adopted the city tax levy earlier tonight on your consent agenda. We're seeking council direction and approval or not on the utility tax coming up here shortly on the agenda. And then we hope to have you adopt the budget at your December 3rd business meeting in a couple of weeks. So our recommendation tonight is to conduct the second public hearing and take public comment on the proposed 2025-2026 biennial budget.
All right. Any questions before I open up the public testimony portion of the public hearing? All right. Do we have a sign-in sheet at the back? Okay. All right. Do we have anyone signed online?
We do not.
So I'm still going to go ahead and open up the public testimony portion of this, and and so I will call out for anyone who's sitting in the audience who wishes to provide public comment that we will you're allowed 3 minutes, and you need to keep the topic relevant to the public hearing topic. So with that, I'm going to open up the public comment portion of our public hearing. Do I have anyone who wishes to give testimony to the public hearing? I do not see anyone. I'm going to ask again, do I have anyone in the audience wishing to make public testimony? With that, I will close the public comment portion of our public hearing. So with that, I will ask staff, we are scheduled to do the December meeting. So with that, we will just go ahead and move that to December. All right, December 3rd, we will be taking action on our budget. All right, with that, we're now moving to council considerations. So ordinance number 2024-009, amending the TMC 3.28.040, imposing utility tax on water, sewer, and stormwater utilities. And Finance Department will be making a presentation. So thank you. Troy.
Thank you, Mayor.
Niemeyer.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Troy Niemeyer, the Finance Director, and this is about Ordinance 2024-009, Utility Tax. So basically, this proposal is to increase the utility tax on water, sewer, and stormwater utilities from the current 6% level to a proposed 12% level for the purpose of increasing revenue in the general fund. Some history on the utility tax in the city of Tumwater. The utility tax was first established in 1974, and it was set at 3%. It remained at the 3% level until 1991, when the city council increased it to 6%, and that was after a period of 17 years. And the utility tax on the city utilities has remained at that same 6% level for 33 years now. And so today, again, the proposal is to increase that by an additional 6%. What does it pay for? This increase would pay for general government services. This money is unrestricted, meaning it can pay for any general government, general fund type service, supplies, professional services, salary and benefits. It could be any general fund department. It could end up in police, fire, streets, or any of those. Talk about briefly what's included and excluded. And again, this is water, sewer, and stormwater only. This would apply to commercial users. It would apply to manufacturers, as well as residential customers. It does not include increasing the utility tax on electricity, natural gas, garbage, cable, internet, or phone. This is kind of a summary slide that you've seen before. Again, current rate for the utility tax is 6%, and that hasn't changed in 33 years. The proposal in front of you tonight would increase it an additional 6% on water, sewer, and stormwater. As Administrator Parks mentioned, this would bring about $617,000 a year to the general fund. And the average cost to a residential customer would be about $8.08 per month on an average bill. Take a quick look at what our neighbors are doing with this tax. Lacey is still at 6%. The city of Olympia for a little while now has been at 12.5%. And the same, Administrator Parks and I are sharing some slides, obviously. So on the left, we have the city of Tumwater. This slide was used in the fee resolution, but it shows our water, sewer, and stormwater rates, as well as the utility tax rates and the changes for 2025. In the middle is the city of Olympia, and on the right in the blue is the city of Lacey. And so you can see the average residential bill in Tumwater going up to $143.55, which includes that $8.08 increase in the utility tax. The city of Olympia is almost $5 higher than the city of Tumwater, and the city of Lacey is $7.65 higher than the city of Tumwater. We do have utility assistance programs. We realize that increasing taxes and rates can be difficult for people. So we do have our utility hardship program, which is our own internal program that people can use about once a year for within certain income limits and for hardship reasons. That program is currently underutilized, and we're working with communications to try to better get the word out about that program. We've currently only got about two people a year using it, and we'd like to see that increased. We've also got the Lifeline program, which is really an excellent program. It's similar to a program that the county has for property tax rates for low-income seniors and low-income disabled people, where they get a 50% discount. Councilmember Jefferson, I see you have your hand up.
Yes, Troy. I think that we have failed in this mission, meaning failure that we only have 2 people in the program. I would like to know, why is that? And for us to really concentrate to get this word out, because we know and we've heard that, yes, it's going up and it's only $8, but $8 is a lot. So just have a way to target these people, and how can we put the word out? For example, I was thinking, when we send out our bill, we should print this out on the bill and on the envelope in the back where you open up your bill, to let these people know there's help there for you. This is a major, thing for me. Get the word out. We can help you. Thank you.
Can I make a quick comment? This
ahead,
also, the utility hardship program was also managed by an external organization, and we just took it back recently. So it was actually managed by Community Action Council as Mason Thurston. We now have it back in-house. So now we are working with it. So hopefully we can improve that. So that hopefully will help moving forward, and they won't have to go to Community Action Council like they had in the past. So hopefully that helps to answer your question.
Yep.
Okay, I'll go to Councilmember Kathy, and then I'll go to Councilmember Agabi.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. When was the last time we raised any of our rates? I mean, we're talking about a utility tax here for 3 different things. We have raised these prices. I'm paying way more than I did in 1992 or 98 or 2003. We keep raising these rates, correct?
We do raise or evaluate the need to raise utility rates annually. The utility tax has not been raised for 33 years, but we generally raise the utility rates, or at least evaluate the rates annually to keep up with inflation, and because the utilities are required to be self-supporting, and so we need to not only grow the system as the population grows, but also be able to maintain the system and pay the people that maintain the system. So even at a low inflation rate, say of 3%, we do generally raise the rates a little bit each year.
So we are raising our taxes on utilities every year.
No, not the taxes, or at least not the tax.
Not
rate.
the taxes, but the cost, or however you call it.
Yeah, the base cost, the base cost of using the utilities. Yes.
The cost of water, the cost of sewer, all of that goes up every year. So I think it's a misnomer to say that people don't understand the difference between a 6% tax on our utilities and the way it's going up every year. You know what I'm trying to say? It's confusing to folks. So the people who suffer the most in things like this are the people who have the least amount of money. And we talk about this all the time and what we can do. And, you know, supposedly have programs and ways to do it out of a town of 27,000 people. You know, maybe not a lot of people need help with this. I know a lot of people who do. I know a lot of people who used to have those little tags put on their doors. And I think $1.2 million in a huge budget like this could be found somewhere else, some other way than to right now raise these rates. I mean, I know, like Council Member Jefferson said, $8 doesn't sound like much because it's sounding like that to us as council members who aren't at the bottom levels of trying to, make it every month. Close, but maybe, but we're not there. So I'm not happy to raise these rates, even for myself. On a fixed income, to add $8 a month to one bill that is already gone up above $100. I pay more than $100 a month for this bill. And I am conservative as heck with my water. And so you add $8 to that. As a person who's conserving, and I don't have a house full of people, and I'm on a fixed income, but this one bill is going to be $115. I mean, I'm using myself as a personal example here because this is the kind of thing that is hard for people who don't have to suffer this kind of thing, or don't have somebody in their family who is struggling. And this really hits seniors and it hits poor people. And I'd like to see if we couldn't get by right now and figure out something in our budget to say to our community, we're going to try to work to save you this extra cost right now. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with our budget or that we're overspending or missing something else. I'm just passionate about this. And I was in 2007 when I ran for city council. This was one of the issues I ran on, the continual raising of utility rates. And here we are. And so that's my, 400th speech of the same thing. But I hope we'll think about it.
So I think Administrator Parks had something to say.
Councilmember Kathy, thank you for that. And two things. One, I agree it's difficult for people to understand why the rates increase and then why the utility tax increases. So just to provide a little bit more around that. So because they are self-supporting proprietary funds, the rates people pay for their water service, their sewer service, and their stormwater are those funds that they pay in their rate have to be used to support those utilities. So all of the capital projects that are required for either growth or for regulatory compliance or for repairs and maintenance, we've got really old, some really old infrastructure that costs a lot to replace. So the rates that people pay are intended to help pay for the costs of providing the service. The utility tax is, as Troy mentioned, unrestricted. And so it is intended that that utility tax would help with the general fund. We have, the second thing I would say is it is not comfortable for any of us to propose an increase that creates a hardship on our community members. The hardship program is underutilized. We intend to be more proactive and get it better utilized. That is intended to be a program that's once a year, perhaps in a situation where somebody faces an extreme circumstance. The Lifeline program currently has 110 participants. That also is not enough. So we want to ensure that we are not only getting the word out, but that we're looking at the parameters of our existing programs and seeing, consistent with state law, is there a way that we can expand the parameters of our Lifeline program, for example, so that we're capturing more people and who can qualify? So we are committed to ensuring that we are addressing the needs of those in our community who are impacted most negatively by rate increases as well as a utility tax increase. One of the components of the Carollo cost of service study that is ongoing includes an affordability analysis. So we are looking at that, and we are serious about the options for doing that. And lastly, I would say, if we are required to find an additional $1.2 million of savings in the general fund, we will. And it will mean that there are things that will not get done that are priorities for this council, because we do not have enough money to do the things that we are being asked to do by our community from a regulatory standpoint and from our council priorities. So we will do that if necessary. And we have done a whole lot of delaying, deferring, and cutting already in order to only have a $5 million deficit over a 2-year period of time instead of the 6.2 that we would have without the utility tax.
So
I appreciate that. I'm sorry, Mayor.
no, go ahead.
Wanted to say that I appreciate that, and I believe it. I know. I mean, I have had to do budgets where you're dancing on the head of a pin. And one thing I wanted to ask is, our utility tax, is that being saved somewhere for other projects?
So the current 6% utility tax, we generally in our planning process try to plan for at least 1.5% of the current 6 to help fund capital facilities projects, so that we're using that money as a source of revenue to be able to leverage grants and loans and ways for us to be able to fund projects in our capital facilities element. The remaining current 4.5% utility tax goes into the general fund and is one of those components of our projected revenue to support the activities out of the general fund.
Thank you for being patient and very explanatory. I hope that some of the people who have talked to me are listening. So know that I brought it up, we talked about it, and where we are as a city. I really do appreciate it. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So Councilmember Gabi, and then I'll go to Councilmember Jefferson, but I did want to make one quick statement. Staff, this is going to be a priority for staff to get these programs out. And I believe yesterday we had $250 in donations in one day for these programs. So getting the community to add funds and donations to this program, and then being able to have more residents being able to use this, I think is a great way. So we're working on ways of getting this out into our community more at a higher level. So
That's great, Mayor. And I wanted to ask how many people get a paper bill anymore compared to 5 years ago or 10
We
years
don't have an
ago.
exact number for that. It's still pretty significant. I think we've got probably 60% of our utility customers getting an electronic bill of some sort. But that means, and we've got roughly 10,000 accounts. And so we probably still send out 4,000 or so paper bills each month.
Mhm. So I think that's important for us to think about in this. We were always really successful and dependent on putting things in the utility bills, and now we don't have that same number that we're reaching. So however else we can do it, would think about it would be good.
All right. I will go to Councilmember Agabi, and then I'll go to Councilmember Jefferson.
Troy, can you please go back to that graph that shows the comparison between the cities, please? So I see Tumwater with the $8 increase. $8 is an increase. I don't see anything for Olympia, but yet their rate seems to be going up. Is there a factor of increase every year that we're not showing in there?
The city of Olympia utility rates are showing an increase, but their tax rate is staying the same, and their tax rate is already at 12.5%.
Yeah, but it seems like so in 2024 it's 143.88 In 2025 it's going to be 148.33 So there's $5 and some 52 cents or 51 cents, give or take, increase there. Is that a function of rate calculation or inflation?
Yes, so the city of Olympia's 2024 total utility bill at the bottom there is 143.88, and in 2025 it goes to 148.33, and that's a result of the rate increases.
Okay. So my second question is, so now we're proposing that for those unable to pay the 8 cent, which for an average citizen would be about $150 for the total bill, we're proposing to make sure that they qualify for some kind of help. So if we were to be successful, according to Councilmember Jefferson, having a large pool of individuals qualify for that, do we have a separate line item where this $17,000 goes into? And how much of that are we going to set aside for that program?
So the internal program that we have, that money is separate from the general fund budget or this budget at all. That's kind of it's considered a fiduciary fund, so it's just kind of kept in trust in a separate bank account. And so we can there is $17,000 or $18,000 in that fund right now, and if enough people needed it and qualified, we could spend the whole thing.
So where does the money come originally? Does it come from general funds?
No, that money comes from community donations.
Donations only?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did, the city, when we started that program, the city did put in, I think, $3,000 to get it started.
Okay.
And then from there, it's been community donations that has grown that fund.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, that's for the hardship program.
Yes.
So the hardship program is the one, it's one time a year or so if somebody faces a specific hardship. The utility, the Lifeline program is a separate program that doesn't, it's basically a reduction in revenue within the utility itself because it's a reduced bill. So the Lifeline program for 110 people that currently qualify and participate means they get a 50% reduction in their actual total bill at the end of the day.
And that's a one-time only?
No, that's an ongoing program.
Ongoing.
So that's a monthly program where they monthly get a 50% reduction in their rate because they meet the qualifications that we've established, which I believe is 150% of the federal poverty rate.
Okay.
And is That's for the other program. As long as they qualify for our low-income senior or disabled resident, then they get that utility rate reduction for the duration if it's requested.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know.
Councilmember Jefferson, I don't see your hand. Did you get your question
Yes,
answered?
yes, it's still up. So I just want to hear the bottom line up front. Our city services is funded by our citizens paying taxes, correct? I'm talking utility tax, sewer tax, sales tax, property tax, new building taxes. Am I tracking?
Yes.
Okay, so that means if we don't pass this, that we're going to have to look at increasing taxes somewhere else, maybe raise sales tax. We know we can't raise the property tax. Am I tracking?
Yes, we would have to look at other revenue options.
Other revenue options. Okay, so if we don't find those other revenue options, that means we're going to have to look at cutting services, cutting personnel as our population increases. So that is what we are looking at.
That's correct.
Thank you. I just wanted to just hear it just like that. Thank you very much, Troy.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Van Holtz.
Thank you, Mayor. Unfortunately for me, it wasn't that long ago where even though I made a livable wage, in air quotes, I was consistently robbing Peter to pay Paul. $8 is a lot to some people, even people who aren't considered low income and probably wouldn't qualify for this. Life gets real lifey, and we have several people in our community who are one unexpected bill away from being able to keep being housed. And so I know that it's real expensive. I know that our staff are continually doing more with less. And this is just a heartbreaking place for us to have to be. Walmart and Lowe's just announced today that they will be raising prices. So everywhere, people are just going to get hit everywhere. And so this is just a heartbreaking point. But I really want to, I know that people are like, it's only $8. It isn't only $8. It could be the difference between someone being able to pay their electric bill. Also, I mean, water is a need. People can't opt out of water services because they need it to live. So just this is heart-wrenching.
All right, any other questions? Okay, go ahead, Troy.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments and feedback. Okay, so we've talked about most of this, but as Administrator Parks was mentioning, we are having a cost of service study done right now on the water utility by a company called Corollo. And as a component of that, there is an affordability piece that they're working on, and we have asked them specifically to recommend programs to help help us keep costs low and help people who can least afford it. And then we can also explore additional programs. We can look at other cities. There's a link on our website for anyone in the public that might be watching to the programs we currently have. And then there's a link below that we plan to use to research MRSC to see about potentially additional programs that we could put forth. Okay, just some background. We've talked about this at several meetings, starting with Public Works Committee, budget workshop on October 22nd, budget hearing on November 4th, and budget workshop last week, and now again tonight. This can only be passed by ordinance by a vote of the council, and if adopted, that's a typo there on the right-hand side, it would be effective January 1st, not January 3rd. We've pretty much talked about the budget implications, about 1.2 million to the general fund budget that would be provided if it's passed, or reductions that would have to be made if it does not pass. And to the question we might get, like, why do this now? And we've kind of talked about these throughout the night. I feel like the steady growth increases our need for services. Inflation has diminished our ability to afford services and people and products. We mentioned the 1% property tax cap that makes it hard to stay current with growth and financial needs. And this tax is the one thing that we can do now. We can to help us. The other taxing options that we can explore are not available yet. We would have to research that, and generally those come down to a limited number of things that would require a public vote. Just some examples of inflation to those who attended the Tumwater Metropolitan Parks District meeting earlier tonight. A park that was estimated to cost $1 million in 2017 now costs $4 million. The Israel Road water main project that happened out in front of City Hall and in front of the high school this summer and fall, many of us got to experience. That was originally estimated at $800,000, ended up costing $4 million by the time it came to fruition. You can see the cost of fire trucks there for the fire department, going from $569,000 in 2012 up to $724,000 in 2018, and now up to $1.2 million for the one we ordered last year. And then similar with turnout gear, just everything going up and up. And then, as we talked about last week and a few other times, liability insurance has almost tripled in the last 4 years. And that is the last example we have for you. So that is the recommendation.
All right, any additional questions? All right, are we ready to make, I would like to see if anyone was willing to make a motion.
Are we doing the motion tonight, or we're waiting to December 3?
Well, it's an option, but if we don't do this, then we won't have the amount for the budget that we're going to have to approve. So either we have it or we don't. Councilmember Althauser.
Thanks, Mayor. I want to reiterate and just say that I agree with everything that's been said and raised by my colleagues as well as by you, Administrator Parks. Like, I don't think anyone is treating $8 as not a lot of money. That will be felt dearly, and I think we all agree with that. We all know that. I know that this increase, was not proposed lightly. I certainly don't take it lightly. I don't think any of us take it lightly. I'm just sort of looking at the realistic situation we're in, which is a condition of global factors, I think, largely. We're here because of inflation, because of insurance costs, because of all sorts of things that are outside of our control. And now we're sort of tasked with responding to it in the way that we personally deem to be the most responsible, the most equitable for the community. And when we look at, the toolkit that we have that has revenue resources in it, there is sales tax in there, but we know that that is the most regressive of all the different revenue options we have. And that we have to have explicit, specific purposes for raising sales tax or property tax, which I'm not sure we would even be able to meet those under the guidelines that are allowed under state law. This sort of seems like the default option that has become the option because it's the most flexible to us, and it's also the one that we haven't touched in the longest. That doesn't mean it doesn't have inequities in it. I totally agree with what everyone has said, that this will be felt acutely by people. But looking at the budget, there sort of seem to be some sort of main cost drivers where if we don't do this, I figure it probably either means we won't be able to do police body cams, which this council has said is a big priority, and that's a big figure that we would have to expend in the coming biennium. We wouldn't be able to do increases for unrepresented staff, which we know are hemorrhaging staff because we're under market for compensating them, and that has other increased expenses down the road because it's more expensive to hire and train new people.
And overtime.
or we wouldn't be able to, or we would have to do layoffs like the city of Olympia is doing. They're laying off 24 employees. So like, if we don't enact something, like we still have to do the $5 million because 6.2 out of our reserves is really a bridge too far, probably for me. I think that 5 million is still an uncomfortable place, but it's also a place where if we know that we're doing this one time, that's why we have rainy day funds, is for rainy days. It's literally rainy outside right now. So I think that we do need to raise revenue, and I do think that this actually is probably the best resource by which we can do it to meet our obligations and to also provide the level of service that our community members want to see. People want to see us have body cams and have transparency in policing and have fire resources that are available and have a fire truck that can actually make it to a house and have staff that are there to answer the phone and provide services. These are the things that are demanded of us. And I think that we have to rise to the occasion and make a tough choice. And I won't begrudge anyone for how they vote because I know that everyone has an honest opinion on this. But I think that we do need that these services that are in the budget are essential to our function and our future as a prosperous city. So I'm not going to do it lightly, but I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance number 02024. Wait, I'm in the wrong one. Oh, shoot. Sorry.
May I,
Okay.
Wait for, you want to wait for the motion, or do you want to?
I was going to propose a wait and have staff bring an alternative.
Then we
And
we
then
we
we
will
can-
not be able to do the budget at our
Okay.
next date. So,
All right.
I mean, we either do it or not,
Okay.
and then, because it'll be how we
Okay.
finalize the budget. Did you have something, Karen? Yeah, we're
Yeah.
in the middle of a motion, so go ahead, Councilmember Althauser.
So I move that we adopt ordinance number 02024-009, amending the Tumwater Municipal Code 3.28040 as discussed at the October 22nd, November 4, and November 12th, 2024 City Council meetings.
And I
I'll
second
second.
that motion.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Althauser, seconded by Councilmember Jefferson. Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Swarthout.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember Althauser, for sharing your concerns as well. And it's not something that we take lightly. I know as far as the staff goes, that they have scrubbed through this budget so many times, as far as coming up with numbers that that are doable. And it is tough to, when you even, that we're fiscally conservative, that's the tack that we've typically taken. And I think now that I would agree with Councilmember Althauser that we're at a time when our city is growing and we need to reflect that as far as the services and that we provide, and that also would increase those the dollars that are expended for those services, and just turning on the water and flushing your toilets and different things like that that we take for granted that it's really necessary. And so and I too I feel when Councilmember Von Holtz said that all of us have been in times in our lives where that we've lost jobs, and myself, 2 years unemployed at the ripe old age in my 50s. And so I appreciate what we're hearing from our seniors as well. It's not fun. And it's a tough choice to make. And so again, we don't do this, take this decision lightly, but I do support this ordinance and what it reflects. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, with that, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor of this or of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you very much. I know this is very difficult for everyone, and we just don't have a lot of options on how we make this work. So I appreciate it. All right, next item is the Percival Creek Fish Barrier Removal Project, construction road closure And who do I have from Public Works to do this? Oh, great. And I should have known who I was having.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. And- Yes, please. Okay. My name is Don Carney. I'm the Capital Projects Manager, and this is Percival Creek Fish,
Can you move the microphone just a little closer? There you go.
Percival Creek Fish Passage Barrier Removal. So this is the location of the barrier culvert on Sap Road. And it's a larger vicinity map, and these maps were brought to you by our GIS department. The scope of work generally is we're removing a fish barrier. It's currently a 5-foot culvert, and it poses a barrier to the fish using Percival Creek. What we want to do is to replace the culvert with a 19-foot wide, 8.5-foot high, and 60-foot long precast concrete split box culvert. We're also proposing to do some stream channel improvements. We're going to be adding some large woody debris and some road upgrades that include a widening of 11-foot travel lanes, 6-foot bike lanes, and 5-foot sidewalks. Overview of the project is, we're going to be soliciting for bids this December, and construction we anticipate starting late June through September 2025. The detour request, staff follows the RCW for road closures. RCW gives authority to the city governing bodies to close roads. So staff would be requesting that we get a full closure on Sap Road for construction period. The intent is to close it for approximately 4 months, June through September again. Local access will be able to get to their homes. It's going to be closed to through traffic. There'll be full detour signage for the duration of the project. These are the different detour routes that we're proposing. You can see Sap Road right there with the hatched blue is going to be open to local traffic. The yellow dot is where the road is actually closed right on Percival Creek itself. There's 2 different loops depending on what direction you're coming from as to what you would take to get around the project site. The approximate time, I think, for both, it's anywhere between 6 and 14 minutes, depending on the route that you propose to take. Everybody up to like Anson on the east side of the closure and La Jolla is on the west side of the closure. They'll have access. It'll have to come in from one side or the other. We're proposing that we close it right there and they are not able to get through.
Hold on. Councilmember Althauser has a question.
So for the alternate routes, I guess I'm wondering about emergency access. Like if someone had a medical event and needed to go to a hospital, they'd probably be going to Capital Medical Center if they're in this neck of the woods as opposed to St. Pete's. So I guess you would take, like if you were on the right side of the yellow dot, I guess you would take the blue route. That would be the route you would take anyway to get to I-5.
Correct.
If you're going to St. Pete's. And if you're going to Capital Medical Center, you'd probably take the purple route anyway to get there because you're going to go south and connect to Black Lake Boulevard.
Get on to Trosper or Black Lake, yes.
Yeah. So in terms of emergency medical access, really the routes stay the same, probably.
They will not be able to go through the.
Yeah, you can't go through the
closure,
yellow
but
dot, but
essentially
you're doing sort of the same route anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So the benefits to closing the road is, in order to build a bypass around, or should I say a widened roadway in order to maintain one lane, we'd have like a significant environmental impact. we'd have to increase the roadway into the current stream as it gets closed, just to make that road go around. We've got to reduce cost, reduce construction time. To do this, we'll be able to get in and get out a lot faster if we have it closed and we're not dealing with a one-lane roadway. Certainly the increased safety for public and for the contractor, if we can not have traveling public through the work zones and trying to maintain that. Traffic control consistency, I don't recall, when we did the I-5 Trosper interchange, we were constantly switching traffic from this side to that side, and it was really rather problematic for, I think, the traveling public. And this way, once we close the road, it's going to be closed for the duration of the project, and they'll understand their routes as they're fully signed, and it won't be changing. And of course, local access is going to be maintained. The construction demands of a culvert replacement project, there's a few things. This particular road is very narrow. Currently, the culvert is like 40 feet, and we're increasing it to 60 feet. So we really need to open this up. We have utilities underneath the current roadway that's going to have to get switched back and forth. It would be a lot easier if we didn't have public in the vicinity. It's a deep excavation. We're like at 22 feet below existing road surface to the bottom of the excavation. So that alone, really opens up the excavation area for making it more difficult to try to find a bypass. Again, the environmentally sensitive area, we're trying to minimize how much impact we're making by closing the road and keeping this as narrow as possible. This particular culvert, this project was done down in Lewis County, as a matter of fact, and this one alone is only like 12 feet deep. The one we're proposing is, it's 10 feet deeper, and you can see how much of the roadway was taken up with this just bit of little construction. Are there any questions?
Councilmember Althauser?
Can you talk a little bit about the notices that will be mailed to the folks who live in the vicinity, so that they'll obviously see the signs, but if they can plan in advance, that makes everyone's lives easier.
That's correct. So I'll be working with our communications department and getting advice from them and providing them with the information. Once we have a contractor and an actual working day, we'll be able to put out notices as to when it's going to happen, the dates that it's proposed to close. We will also, only a week in advance, be putting up the portable changeable message boards that inform the public of the road closure. And so they'll have time to react at that point as well. But along Sap Road, I would propose that we put out letters. But again, I'll follow communications lead on that.
Great. Thank you.
Councilmember Agabi?
So do you plan on rerouting the creek, or are you just going to block it off while you dig?
Yes, we will be blocking the creek off for the duration of the project. It's going to be bypass this particular project. That black pipe was going to be like for to allow the stream to go around the project.
Okay.
We don't yet know what the contractor is going to do. Currently, we have it in the contract that we'll be pumping the stream around. But yes, we do block it off and put in fish nets,
Okay.
Prevent any fish from trying to get through.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All right. I think we need to take action on this, so do I have a motion?
I'll move to authorize the closure of Sap Road Southwest from Crosby Boulevard Southwest to RW Johnson Road Southwest with traffic detour for the duration of the project. The roadway,
All right. Do I have a second to the motion?
Second.
A second.
Okay. I think Councilmember Gabi beat you. So I have a motion made by Councilmember Von Holtz and seconded by Councilmember Agabi. Any discussion on the motion?
I just want to say I'm happy for the fish.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
been needed to be done for quite a while, so this will be
Yep.
great. All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are to committee reports. So Public Health and Safety, Council Member Agabi.
So from my recollection, which seems like many, many years ago since we had our public health and safety meeting, we had two interlocal agreements, two of which we did pass tonight unanimously. And then we advanced resolution R 2024-015 to full council for action. Those are what I recall that we did.
Great. Next will be the General Government Committee, Council Member Althauser.
Thank you, Mayor. The General Government Committee met on November 13th, this past Wednesday, and we discussed a couple different items, two of which were on I believe were on our consent agenda earlier tonight. One was an amendment to an interlocal agreement regarding the Franz Anderson project, and then we also discussed an interlocal agreement with Lacey and Olympia and Yelm for updating the ADU accessory dwelling unit plans. We also discussed some development code amendments that have not appeared before this body, but will in the coming weeks.
Great. Next is Public Works Committee, Council Member Swarthout.
Thank you, Mayor. A number of items that were on the consent agenda were covered at our last meeting of the Public Works, but we will be meeting again on Thursday, November 21st at 8 a.m. And we have a service provider agreement with Pacific Testing and Inspection for on-call material testing and amendment number 3. And there's a number of, there's another one. So we have like 5 items. Sorry, I don't want to read through all of them. We have 5 items that we'll be discussing. And I expect that we'll probably see them on our consent or consideration council meeting upcoming.
Great, thank you. And Budget and Finance Committee has not met. Of course, we're in the middle of budget season. So with that, now we will go to the Mayor City Administrator report, and we will start with City Administrator Parks.
I don't have anything in particular tonight, Mayor, other than to say we are working hard on completing Israel Road, if you haven't noticed. There are a few things that will be delayed. We're waiting for the material to be delivered, primarily the flashing beacon at the crosswalks. But other than that, we're making good progress. Linwood Avenue is officially going to be wintered over, so we will complete Linwood Avenue paving and striping next spring as early as possible.
Great, thank you. So for my report, I attended 2 meetings since our last council meeting. The one was on the November 6th Intercity Transit Authority Board meeting, and we conducted a public hearing on draft budget. They do annual budgets, so this is a task that they do every year. And then we also had a declared several vehicles that to be surplus. We also scheduled the public hearing for the 2025-2030 draft strategic plan, which will be held at 5:30 on Wednesday, December 4th. And we discussed, we are also we have community members that 3 community members on the Intercity Transit Authority Board. And one of them has, their term has expired. So we will be doing actually the interviews for that on Friday. So they were, we were making that approving that time frame. On November 7th, I attended the elected officials, JBLM elected officials breakfast meeting. That is something that's held twice a year, which is very beneficial with JBLM. It keeps us all apprised of everything that's going on. As many people know, JBLM is definitely one of the largest. It provides a large amount of employment and one of a lot of revenue. So it's good to have that. And it was great to see Congressman Strickland, who was able to attend in person as opposed by video like she usually does. And then I just have one additional statement, and I've written this out, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. One is I've always cared about Tumwater and I'm proud to be part of this community. I was appointed to the Planning Commission in 2003, where I served for 10 years. 7 of those years I was chair. After serving on the advisory role, I decided it was time to become part of the legislative branch. So I was elected to serve 2 terms as a city council member. When former Mayor Pete Commit decided he would not run for re-election, I worked with him and received his endorsement to replace him as mayor. I've always taken the responsibility of being the first woman mayor in Tumwater seriously and always wanted to be the best example of leadership possible. I have always strived to be an example of collaborative leadership and tried to keep politics out of being the executive for the city as much as possible. Some people know I grew up on a ranch in Montana, and as a very young age, I was responsible for taking care of many animals. We raised horses and also registered AKC dogs. I was responsible for training horses at the age of 12, including the years when we had 35 head of horses, which we used for guided tours. My employment history included small business owner, working for large international companies, a nonprofit, a trade association, and then state government. I believe my history that bridged many different industries, and I have known nothing but hard work on my 70 years here on this planet. Midway through my first year as mayor, my husband was diagnosed with cancer, and at the end of that year, he passed away. The end of this month will be his 2nd anniversary of his passing. I have been blessed to have this career, which has helped me process this unexpected and major adjustment in my life. I had always planned to serve as 2 terms as mayor. However, many discussions with my family who say I work way too hard my whole entire life, and it's time for me to retire and enjoy my life more. So tonight I'm announcing that I will not be seeking a 2nd term as Tumwater mayor, and will be serving my final year as mayor, completing many of the goals that I set out to achieve. I value the amazing staff at the city of Tumwater and appreciate all their dedication they bring to the city every day. Ooh, sorry. So I know that this is not an easy one to follow, but we're going to go ahead and do council member reports, and I will start with Council Member Jefferson.
And me shed a couple tears there. On the 19th of November, today, we had the Experience Olympia and Beyond meeting, and our CEO, Annette Pitts, is resigning on her last day is the 31st of December, and she's not leaving on any negative terms. It is positive, and the board will start recruiting for her position right away. The RFP goes out on Friday. I attended the Emily Conference, which is Emerging Multicultural Leadership Experience 2024 in Tacoma. And this was my first civilian leadership experience. And I can say that it was pleasantly calming compared to leadership conferences that I had in the military. And there was lots of advice given on leadership and networking and workshops and just togetherness and just teamwork on how we can make our community better. One more point. Give me a minute. I thought I was going to go third, but Mayor, you got me this time. Also, we met for Tumwater Hopes. And I know the last time Councilmember Dahlhoff was here, she was talking peer-to-peer. How do we get these school-age kids to just start communicating with each other, start looking out for each other, and just a little bit more? And you know, I've reached out to Chris, who builds curriculum at Tumwater Schools, CTE, And I thought about, what about having little T-Hopes ambassadors in school, where we're having issues with kids and mental toughness and a lot of anxiety is increasing. So we can have ambassadors just be amongst their friends, look out for each other. If someone's having an anxiety attack, if they're thinking about, suicide ideations, they can go and tell an adult. So how would it look for Chris to build that curriculum to spread that prevention message and to bring to grow future mental health professionals and bring them back into the community, because we know there's a shortage of social workers, mental health professionals, and that's the same thing that we're trying to do with water services, to just build and just grow our own so they can come back to Tumwater and work in our city. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I can take any more election year shocks, or I'm not feeling very strong at the moment myself, and I actually don't have any report.
Thank you. Councilmember Swarthout.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for sharing and your service. It's been amazing serving with you. We still have you this year, so we'll make the best and have the very best year and send you out on a high note. So I do appreciate your service, and I haven't had any meetings, so I have no report. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Von Holtz. Oh, hold on. Let me turn on your.
Well, first, thank you for not going to me right after your statement, because I appreciate all that you have put in for public service. And as for people who are watching, as hard as you think it might be to run for a political office, it's a million times harder. So, and especially being a woman. And so I really appreciate you being the first woman mayor of Tumwater. And so thank you for being a mentor to me as well. I didn't have a lead meeting. I did have public health and safety, Peter, and your recollection is same as mine. I also attended on the 9th, ASHO's 3rd anniversary, and we are so lucky in Tumwater to have a cultural center. There were people who attended that meeting who were from Tacoma and other places along the area, and they were wishing that they had something like that. So we really a true gem. And if you want some really good food that you don't come across every day, you should really check them out. And then Mayor, you and I and Councilmember Dahlhoff all attended the Veterans Day celebration at the Capitol, and it was they had the youth choir there, and in the rotunda with the acoustics. It was just a really beautiful event, and I think that's all for my update.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Agabi.
So, if you see a tree, a luxurious tree that have branches growing out and leaves very, very shiny and luxurious, that's a function of the taproot going deeper into the soil and collecting moisture and nutrient. So we have gone from Mayor Pete, who's been mayor of I don't know how long, to our first woman mayor. I do believe that for any structure to have stability, that structure has to be given chance to put down roots, kind of like the tree that I just spoke about. I'm not sure the circumstances, although you did tell us for family reasons, I believe that Tumwater was going to a place where we were finding stability and starting to do stuff that we haven't done before. So I don't know if the things we set up to achieve will continue to happen. It is my belief, maybe naive on my part, that we will continue on this journey. And for your retirement, I wish you Godspeed. And I thank you for being our first woman mayor. I thank you for all you've done for Tumwater. Your tenure has been very, very positive, at least from my own standpoint, from the things that you've done. It is easy to point to one mistake than to point to what they have done good, because we as humans, we're programmed to find fault in what was not done properly. But if given the same opportunity, given my experience, I'm 60, I was born 1962, so that would put me at 62 years old. For my 62 years on this earth, I can tell you that we will all do the same mistake that every one of us will do, because that is the way life evolves. None of us come to this world being perfect. We learn by mistakes and grow and move forward. So having said that, I will say I was a little bit shaken by what you said, but it is what it is. So thank you for your time. And then for my committee assignment, I did attend JASCOM yesterday, the Joint Animal Services, and the things that we've talked about was mostly about our budget, like we talked about here tonight, and how there's going to be an increased cost. And the increased cost was because, according to what we're told, JASCOM had been using our reserve during the COVID years to fill in for the budget. So now, since that is not going to be happening going forward, there is going to be 14.8, essentially 15% increase in the cost of our services for all the member jurisdictions. So Olympia, Tumwater, and Lacey. And our part of the cost, plus or minus about 200,000. So that is what I gathered about the statistic for Joint Animal Services as related to what they've done over the past 1 year, year and a half, because it's always moving forward. They have been, there has been, I am, my equilibrium is a little bit out of whack. So in terms of surgery, they were able to increase surgery, and in doing that, they have their first center amputation for a dog that was actually adopted the very next day. So the dog is doing fine. So so that is that. Oh, and they do have so around the public spaces, you're going to see a scan sign, a QR code sign that they post everywhere. You could scan those if you're missing an animal. Say if your animal was had gone through this program where somebody collected the data and put it into their computer with pictures. If you scan it, if you lose an animal, and if you find one of those barcodes, if you scan that, and if they have the animal, at least know the whereabouts where the animal is, you're able to be related with your animal. So that is one of their innovative function. So what else did I do? I attended a Thurston County Transportation Board meeting last week. And for call for project, we do have good news for Tumwater. So we have two projects, and one of those projects was the feasibility study, traffic feasibility study from Little Rock Road going to Tumwater Boulevard for about 180,000 thereabout, plus or minus. but that project may or may not be funded. But for our trade study, starting from Pioneer Park going towards the brewery, that will be funded. But the process with which that will be done is still being worked. But technically, that is a project that will be funded. And the funding for that project, so we had about what, almost 2 or 3 million. So they will fund up to 98%. So we only have to come up with 2%. So that's a good thing. But that is still in the work because staff are still working on how that will be rolled out. So that is my report.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Althauser.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Regional Housing Council meeting this past Wednesday. I'll just note on one item that was on the agenda, which was a discussion about whether that body wants to engage in some sort of policy work in the future. The Regional Housing Council has largely been a funding entity. We make recommendations about what projects should be funded based on the advice from our advisory boards and our community members and individuals with subject matter expertise. And those are then forwarded to the Board of County Commissioners. But we've long sort of had ambitions to do more work than that. And we developed a consensus amongst the board members and amongst the staff who we invited to provide feedback as well, that there could be an opportunity for that entity to do more in terms of making recommendations about things like housing policy, which could contain a host of different things, whether that's things like tenant protections or things like mold or moisture in housing or a variety of different elements. So our next step for that is to get some more information from staff for what a half-day retreat might look like, which we'll get at our next meeting, and to then plan potentially to have that retreat in the early spring. And it will probably be a 2 to 3 hour thing or a half-day retreat, but it is a development that I'm personally excited about. And I would be remiss if I didn't also thank you for your service, Mayor. One of our first conversations when I was on the Planning Commission, when I was in my 20s, just a sweet summer child, we got coffee at Starbucks. And I remember I told you I was interested in serving the community on city council. And one of your first questions for me wasn't, what politics do you ascribe to? What party would you ascribe to, even though these are nonpartisan seats? It was, who do you want to help? And I think that question always made an impression on me. And I think really spoke to your character and your drive and what you're trying to accomplish as well. As what we're all doing here is we're trying to help people in the community. And I think that made a big impression on me. I want to thank you for it and thank you for your service, Mayor.
Thank you. We now have an executive session to go to. How long do we think we're going to?
3 hours?
No. 15 minutes, 20 minutes? 20 minutes, okay. So council will now meet in executive session to discuss collective bargaining pursuant to RCW 42.30.140 sub 4 sub B to discuss pending and also to discuss pending litigation pursuant to RCW 42.30.100 sub R sub 1I. The council will be in executive session for 20 minutes until 9:23, and council is not expected. Oh, council is expected to take further action is not expected to take further action following the executive session. And so with that, I will recess our council meeting and we will come back later to close out the meeting.
Angela, you're still on the regular council meeting.
Perfect timing.
All right. We have returned exactly on time. With that, I will adjourn our meeting. Good night, everyone.